Why has the drought in the Panama Canal become an increasingly common topic, and how will this event affect your life in the coming months if not resolved quickly? Is the Panama Canal nearing a tragic end? In recent weeks, hundreds of container ships have piled up in front of one of the crucial links in international trade, the Panama Canal. A massive navigational route spanning 80 kilometers, connecting the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. Approximately 14,000 ships use the canal annually, representing 6% of global trade, a key link in the supply chain for stores worldwide. However, a problem seems to persist. Technical failures, lack of space, and weather-related issues have been recurring, creating chaos at both entrances of the canal. It may seem surprising, but to begin understanding this entire context surrounding the heart of the Panama Canal, we need to go back in time a bit and find ourselves in France. Our journey takes us back to the end of the 19th century to encounter the man nicknamed the Great Frenchman. In 1879, diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps founded the Universal Interoceanic Canal Company of Panama. Ferdinand, the main promoter of the construction and success of the Suez Canal, inaugurated 10 years earlier, was the most capable man to take on an audacious project to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. To do this, he intended to drill an 80-kilometer strip of land south of Panama, between the Caribbean Sea and the Bay of Panama. Driven by this initial success, in 1880, he repurchased the concession of Panamanian lands still under the authority of the United States of Colombia, and in 1881, he initiated his audacious project, driving the first shovels into the ground for a megalomaniacal construction for that time. But problems with the canal are not just recent, and as soon as construction began, they didn't take long to surface. The Great Frenchman wanted to do the same as he had done for the Suez Canal. However, the construction site was very different. The region was covered by dense jungle that needed to be overcome, and a hill nearly 100 meters above sea level needed to be cut through. Above all, the climatic conditions of the equatorial region became unbearable for the workers, with tropical storms, landslides, and soon after, diseases became common among the workers. Malaria and yellow fever plagued the teams on site, pushing the project to the brink of bankruptcy. Plans were rearranged to build a canal with a lock, as requested by many stakeholders in the project, including Gustave Eiffel, the future designer of the iconic Eiffel Tower in Paris. But it was too late for such a significant change, especially as the case was tied to one of the biggest financial scandals of the century in France. Tens of thousands of investors funded the project through a large-scale public subscription. In reality, this money was used more to bribe public authorities than to finance a canal that seemed increasingly unviable, leading the Viscount de Lesseps company to bankruptcy in 1889. It was an adventure that cost the money of tens of thousands of small investors and, worse still, the lives of over 20,000 workers. Despite its failure, the Panama Canal continued to arouse interest. The route had been the desire of Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century, and for good reason. This route of less than 100 kilometers would avoid having to circumnavigate the entire South America and navigate around the dangerous Cape Horn, also known as Drake Passage. We have a video explaining exactly why ships hate passing through this route. In 1903, with the support of the United States, Panama declared its independence. A few days later, this support secured the United States a perpetual concession for the canal, as well as a 16-kilometer wide strip of land crossing the country from side to side. This ensured that work resumed on May 4, 1904. Engineers opted for the idea of a canal with locks, making the project more feasible. The arrival of vaccines prevented the spread of certain tropical diseases. This titanic project lasted for 10 years, mobilizing a complex system of steam engines and visionary railway engineering. This was especially true for the disposal of millions of tons of rocks removed during the canal's excavation. Nearly 40,000 workers were employed at the peak of construction. The project cost the United States almost $375 million, by far the country's most expensive project at the time, spanning 79.6 kilometers. 2 artificial lakes and 3 enormous locks, each 33 meters wide, revolutionized maritime trade and made it possible to traverse the American continent, but this project also resulted in the deaths of another 5,000 workers during construction. The canal was officially inaugurated on April 15, 1914, just as Europe plunged into World War I. The Americans had full control of this crucial maritime communication axis. They decided on the size of the locks, which were 320 meters long and 33 meters wide. These dimensions set the standards for the new giants of the seas, the Panamax, with 32 meters in width and 294 meters in length. Only in the 1970s did a process begin to return the canal and the American sphere of influence to Panama. In 1999, Panama became the owner of the canal that bears its name. Today, the canal is one of the country's most important financial sources, representing 10% of national revenue. Thanks to all the tax revenues it generates and all related activities, this unique corridor is obviously not free. According to data released by the Canal Authority, passage fees range from $10,000 for smaller ships to $300,000 for new Panamax container ships. These giants are 51.25 meters, 168 feet, wide and can carry almost 12,000 containers. Prices can even skyrocket during peak periods. Certain available spaces are auctioned by port administrators. Recently, a chemical tanker paid $2.4 million to be allowed to pass ahead of all others. It's a financial influx whose viability is now in doubt as the canal's model is on borrowed time. The canal operates with a system still in use today. Engineers did not clear the entire area to build the canal, instead, they leveled the road before flooding it with two artificial lakes. The main one, Gatun Lake, and a second lake, Alajuela, formerly known as Maiden Lake, are fed by inland rivers. To access this road 28 meters above sea level, a system of locks is used to raise and lower boats. It's an engineering masterpiece that requires the use of locomotives on the canal's banks to move the boat from one lock to another. However, this system comes at a cost. Between 200 and 250 million liters of freshwater from the canal are lost to the ocean each time a boat passes through. While not a problem during abundant rainfall, constant climate changes are altering the rules, leading to increasingly frequent droughts. Between 2016 and 2019, Panama faced a new challenge starting in May, originally the rainy season. The situation worsened with the influence of the El Niño meteorological phenomenon in weather records. Precipitation indices often hover near zero in the region, resulting in decreased river and lake levels. The scarcity reached a point where authorities implemented early preventive measures, such as reducing the tonnage of boats to avoid potential sinkings. Additionally, the daily number of container ships on this route was reduced from 40 to 32, causing longer queues at the maritime corridor gates. Unlike the Suez Canal, which has direct access, the Panama Canal passage occurs through a system of locks, requiring the assistance of tugboats and highly trained operators for this delicate task. With equally high demand but limited capacity, waiting times have significantly increased. In early September, Le Monde reported that wait times for boats had increased from 4 days under normal conditions to nearly 20 days in mid-August. Panama's queues had already raised concerns in 2006 when the canal proved obsolete and inadequate for accommodating the new and ever larger container ships, which continue to grow in size. After approval in a referendum, the country embarked on an ambitious $6 billion expansion of the canal in 2016. The new canal gates were inaugurated, allowing 95% of global vessels to pass through. The bed of Gatun Lake also underwent a significant transformation, deepened by 45 centimeters to increase the daily capacity for boat passage. Despite expectations, this monumental project did not solve the water scarcity challenge. Faced with drought, Panama is in a challenging situation. Initially, measures included confirming passage restrictions for the next year if rains are insufficient until November, marking the end of the country's rainy season. However, the implications go beyond canal navigation. The two artificial lakes, vital for canal operation, also serve as sources of drinking water for the capital, Panama City, and its surroundings, catering to more than 2 million people, nearly half the country's population. Aware of the need to address the water demand of the Panama Canal, authorities have outlined a proposal to tackle the situation. Canal Administrator Ricord Vasquez revealed a preliminary solution in a September press conference: the creation of a new water reservoir west of the canal, fed by the Indio River. This reservoir would be connected to Gatun Lake through an 8-kilometer underground tunnel. However, implementing this new water supply will take time. Estimates suggest the project's completion will take approximately 3 months in conditions of abundant rainfall, but about 2.5 years if the drought persists. Authorities acknowledge the urgency of the situation and are exploring alternatives to ensure the sustainability of the Panama Canal amid climate challenges. This current crisis in the Panama Canal has far-reaching repercussions in our lives. As the canal is a vital route for global trade, supply chains will face disruptions, leading to product shortages and price increases. Transportation costs are expected to rise, directly impacting consumers and generating inflationary pressures. To solve this problem, significant infrastructure investments will be necessary, influencing global investment decisions. Canal operations disruption may compromise energy and food security, affecting the prices of these resources and triggering political and diplomatic implications among countries involved in global trade, further escalating tensions and challenges in our current world. Many companies may opt for the use of the Arctic route through the Drake Passage, an alternative being avoided by transport companies, and we'll tell you why in this video. See you there.